I am hearing that Cheetah Hunt will be closing forever on May 1st. Now on a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous did I just make you? Because Cheetah Hunt's not getting removed, but I cannot say that for another coaster at Busch Gardens. So after hearing the same rumor from multiple people whose home park is Busch Gardens Tampa, it appears that we have a new rumor about a coaster that might be getting removed from the park. I share my thoughts with you about this intriguing rumor and what we can expect to replace it, and to finish off, I'm going to share with you what year I think it's going to open. This is Theme Park Predictions, and my name is Brandon, and I'm really glad you're here. So let's talk Busch Gardens Tampa coaster removal, because you're probably thinking that it's Kumba, and it's not. So I have been hearing from multiple people that we have to keep our eyes on Sand Serpent, Busch Gardens Tampa's mock Wild Mouse coaster that first opened at the park in 2004. And while you might think the coaster is not that old, let's take a brief look at the history of the attraction, because some of you don't know, this roller coaster first opened up at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in 1996. So this family coaster is coming up on 30 years, which is pretty old for a Wild Mouse coaster. But the biggest question is what does Busch Gardens Tampa have plans for this little plot of land? Because as we know, Sand Serpent doesn't take up a ton of room. But this is where things get interesting, because in the past, the theater next to Sand Serpent has also been rumored to get removed. Will that time finally come? Also, another rumor for this area of the park is Falcon's Fury, the park's 330-foot tall Intamin drop ride, which isn't even 10 years old, but has given the park multiple issues and it is rumored to get removed. When you pair that with the removal of Phoenix, the park's inverted pirate ship ride, and the two kid rides located here, you are now looking at a very intriguing plot of land. Now, if you don't know, the park removed the Phoenix attraction late last year, so I predict that we have to keep our eyes on this location for a possible new attraction, because with the Sand Serpent rumor and then a Falcon's Fury rumor, there's a lot going on and a lot of buzz in this area, and it's very exciting. But what's going to replace it? A new roller coaster? Or what about the long rumored dark ride? Because we know that Busch Gardens Tampa could definitely benefit from an awesome dark ride. But on the other hand, the SeaWorld parks have never really had much success in the dark ride department, especially with Antarctica. So maybe we don't want that to happen. But what about a new flat ride or a new family ride? Or maybe a new animal exhibit? These are all things that Busch Gardens Tampa could benefit from. But I really feel like this area is centered around a brand new roller coaster, because the only anchor attraction that this area has is Falcon's Fury and Scorpion, and unfortunately Falcon's Fury isn't open very often. Now a huge shout out goes to We The Coasters and Dylan specifically, because Dylan's an awesome guy and their channel is great, so be sure to go follow them, because Dylan and I were chatting about this the other night about this possible rumor, and we both think something's going to happen to this area sooner than later, meaning I don't know if we're going to be riding Sand Serpent come summertime. Now I'm going to share with you my 3 coaster predictions that I can see fitting best in this area of the park for Busch Gardens Tampa. But first, if you are planning a trip to Busch Gardens Tampa or know someone that is, then you have to check out my Busch Gardens Tampa Insider Guide that you're not going to want to miss. And you can find a link to that video in the description. Now the first roller coaster that I can see coming to this location will be a new family Vekoma suspended coaster. To date, Vekoma has built 13 of these coasters around the world, and I have to tell you, there's a reason for that. If you've ever been to Dollywood and been on Dragonflyer, you know exactly why that is. These family coasters are so much fun. In fact, it's one of the most fun coasters at Dollywood. And what's best about this type of coaster is that it caters to any thrill seeker, because if you ride in the back row or the very front row, it's a fantastic ride, and of course in the middle, it's more tame. And I have to say, that first turn is legit, because it's an overbank turn and you're almost upside down. It really is a great family thrill coaster, and it's obviously popular among park guests because there's already been 13 of these things built. So I personally would love to see Busch Gardens Tampa build one of these. Even though this exact coaster I feel like might be better off at SeaWorld Orlando, but again, if it goes to Tampa or Orlando, in my opinion, that's a fantastic fit. Now, the next roller coaster that I can see coming to Busch Gardens Tampa would come from Intamin, and I think we could be looking at a larger scale Pantheon style coaster for this area of the park. It's no secret that park visitors visiting Busch Gardens Williamsburg love Pantheon, even if it doesn't offer the best capacity. If Busch Gardens Tampa would build this style of coaster, it's going to give park guests a very unique riding experience, because when you deal with the forwards and backwards vertical spike, the top hat, as well as the rollback, if built in this area, park guests are just going to stand and watch this thing, and it's great for interaction. I predict if a Pantheon style coaster gets built at Busch Gardens Tampa, it has the possibility of beating out Iron Gwazi for best coaster in the park. Now, you might not know, but Pantheon's only 3,300 some feet long, so it's definitely on the shorter side, especially for an Intamin multi-launch coaster. And taking a look at Tatatis, which is located at Parc Asterix in France, this coaster is a larger scale Pantheon and features over 3,500 feet of track. Two very similar coasters, one much larger than the other. So could we see Busch Gardens Tampa decide to make their Intamin LSM coaster 4,000 feet long? I mean, maybe that would be awesome if true, and again, this thing would be legit and could rival Velocicoaster and Iron Gwazi for the best coaster in Florida. And as you can see with the aerial views of this area, there's a lot of room Busch Gardens Tampa could work with to make this style of coaster fit in this area. Now, the rumors for this next attraction have been around for a very long time now, and the question is Busch Gardens Tampa really getting ready to look into adding a Giga coaster? Now, I'm not saying they're going to, or it's even possible, because I know there's a height restriction, and even though Falcon's Ferry is 330 feet tall, it's allowed because I believe it's a single structure. Now, obviously with the Giga coaster, you have a bunch of supports and it's not a single structure. But I have always lived by the slogan, you never know till you try. So maybe Busch Gardens Tampa will try to get a Giga, and who knows what could happen. And in my opinion, this location will be perfect for the Giga, and here is why. As you can see by my layout here, the station is in brown and is located right where the Phoenix attraction used to be located. And the pink track is a lift hill, and it's going to head straight north. Whether this roller coaster tops out at 300 feet or goes a little bit taller, this location might be the best one yet for the park's Giga. So back to my layout, as you can see, after the ride's first drop, it's going to head into a very fun overbank fast turn, just like Fury and Leviathan. Then after that element, the train is going to dive down over the detention pond to enter an enormous airtime hill. This is where the GP is going to love this coaster, because you're going to get floating airtime and great views of downtown Tampa, especially during sunsets. Then as the train travels back towards Congo Rapids, you're going to enter a very high-speed overbank turn that's very low to the ground, really showcasing the speed that this Giga coaster would offer. From there, you're going to hit a straightaway track right over the water. The next element would be the ride's turnaround. From there, you're going to enter another airtime-filled hill before dropping back down to the ground. Then, you're going to enter another curved airtime hill that travels over the track exiting the actual high-speed turn, the ride's second element. And from there, you're going to feature a curved helix that is going to drop you a few feet above the ground. As the train leaves this element, you're going to experience multiple airtime hills that run parallel to the ride's first drop and lift hill. And as the train passes the ride station, you're going to enter an overbank turn much like the last element of Millennium Force. After this, the train hits the brake run, and you are looking at what I want to say would be the best coaster in Florida and maybe the entire country. So now that you know my coaster predictions for Busch Gardens Tampa and this location, I really want to know what you think about my predictions, as well as what are yours. And as far as timeline goes, when could this thing get built? Well, it's already March 2023, so unless Busch Gardens Tampa decides to close down Sand Serpent, let's say in April or May of this year, I really feel like 2025 is going to be the year for this. Now again, if the park decides to close it over the next few weeks, then I think 2024 is a realistic shot at this. But nonetheless, Busch Gardens Tampa is gearing towards a new coaster, which is great because Iron Gwazi was announced in 2019 and opened in 2022. So the park is definitely due, and I think 2024 or 2025 will be the year that Busch Gardens Tampa decides to build their next major coaster. Now clearly, if this coaster is, let's say, the Vekoma Family Suspended Coaster, then it's going to take a lot less time to build and fit into this area. So if that's the case, then maybe 2024 for sure. But a larger scale Pantheon or even a Giga, it's going to take a long time for them to get the land prepped and obviously start construction and finish the ride. So now that you know my thoughts, again, I would love to know yours. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and keep riding coasters.